Hello, this is one of our old episodes where our sound quality isn't quite so good and we're a bit amateur.
Yeah, now we're pros and we've spoken about a lot more things and our sound quality is a lot better, as you can hear currently.
Yes, so enjoy the show anyway. Thank you.
Of the show. Welcome to
The Curiosity of
A Child.
Hi, I hope everybody's well. This is episode 5 and today we are going to introduce our first...
Guernsey Great.
Yeah, so what are Guernsey Greats?
Guernsey Greats are famous people from Guernsey, and I came up with that name.
You did, that's right. So as you may or may not know, we are from Guernsey, which is a very small island in the English Channel, so between England and France.
Yeah.
And despite its size, we've had quite a few sort of famous people or interesting people from the island, but maybe they're not all known. So, we were hoping to talk about them and learn a bit for ourselves and also for our listeners.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget that you can follow us on Twitter at CuriChildPod. Feel free to send us a message. And also leave us a review or a rating on Apple Podcasts, also on Podbean, Stitcher, and Spotify. So you can find us all those places. So what have you been up to, Anton, since the last episode?
Yeah. Well, I've been researching DNA at school.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
I've been painting my cars, actually, because I enjoy modelling and painting.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a new mattress. Oh, and an elf on a shelf.
Yes, you got that. Yeah. He scared you a bit, didn't he?
Yeah, at first. But most importantly, we've been getting ready for Christmas.
That's right, yeah, because it's already December, which is crazy. So can you tell me anything about DNA?
We haven't done too much on it, but we've done a not really a diagram, it's more a drawing of a double helix, which is what they come in.
The shape, yeah.
Yeah, the shape that they come in. And
it's like a spiral, isn't it? It's like a spiraled ladder.
Yeah, it's a spiraled ladder. A and T, which go together. C and G, which also go together. And yeah, you can't have the A and G. You have to have A and T, C and G. Otherwise...
Yeah, they always have the same pairs, don't they?
Yeah.
What's amazing, though, with DNA is that because all living things have DNA, and it's like the instructions of how we're going to be built. And do you know how much DNA we share with a banana?
50%.
Yeah, which is crazy to think that you are 50% banana.
Yeah.
So is that almost cannibalism if you eat a banana?
50%.
Yeah, 50% cannibalism, yeah.
Yeah.
What's amazing about DNA, if you think about it, there's only 4 different types. What was it? The A, T, C, and G?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you imagine those as 4 different types of Lego brick, which can only be combined in certain ways. If you put them in different orders, you can create anything with them.
Yeah.
Can't you?
Actually, another good fact about DNA, everybody in the entire world is 99.99% the same.
Yeah.
And just 0.01% different. That's what makes us look different.
Yeah. So you are half me and you're half mummy, aren't you?
Yeah.
With your DNA. And actually, I've been thinking for a while to do one of those DNA tests. So they can show you where you're from in the world and how much Neanderthal you are.
Yeah, we watched a program on that, and there was like this guy who did it, and he was like something like 2% Norman or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's amazing actually. Because you're half Russian.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really interesting actually to see kind of your backgrounds.
And Granny is from Yorkshire as well.
From Yorkshire,
so
yeah. And
that would be interesting.
Gramps, he's local to the island. But apparently there's from his mother's side, so your great-grandmother.
Yeah.
Kind of down that family line, there's meant to be some Spanish, I think.
Spanish?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So that'd be really interesting. And then there must be some French with our names.
Yeah.
Right, so should we get cracking on with our first Guernsey Great?
Yeah, off we go. Guernsey Great. Sir Isaac Brock, Part 1.
Yeah, thank you. So this is part 1 of our Guernsey Greats. This is a news feature, which we'll be doing fairly regularly. So as you know, we live in Guernsey. It's a small island in the English Channel, so it's between England and France. Now, we're not English or part of the UK, but we are British. We have our own government, but are not part of the EU, but are part of the European community. So it's a little bit confusing to explain that to people sometimes. Now, the population of the island is just under 65,000 people, but despite our small size, we've produced some fine figures in history that have set out across the globe from their humble home. This can be our first one, and we're going to look at a gentleman called Sir Isaac Brock. So let's start with a picture of him. So this is a picture from 1809. How does he look to you?
Very smart, and he looks like maybe a general from the army.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he definitely looks like he's from the army of some sort.
Yeah, so this is a profile, like a side view of him here, and he's kind of very smartly dressed as the time, in kind of a fine kind of red uniform. And actually, you can't really see here, but he would have had around his neck, you know, they had those neckties things at the time. That'll be important later. Okay. He's not actually that well known in Guernsey, but in Canada he's huge, where he earns the sobriquet, the hero of Upper Canada, for his actions in the War of 1812. Now, do you know anything about the War of 1812?
No.
No, okay.
Apart from it was in 1812.
Yeah, it was in 1812.
That, no.
Yeah, so it was a war between the British and America. Or the United States, rather, where the United States, they invaded Canada. So that was, well, still is part of the British Empire.
Yeah.
But I suppose it was more British at the time than it is now. Now, the war lasted from June 1812 to February 1915. And as I said, it's fought between the United States and the UK, including Canada. But there were also some Native Americans fighting on both sides, or First Nations people. Mm-hmm. And we also burned down the White House. High fives. But at the moment, with Trump in there, I think it's worth burning down. Anyway, back to Brock. So Isaac Brock, he was born on 6th of October 1769 in St. Peter Port, which is the main town in Guernsey. The house in which he lived is now a Boots, and that's a chain of chemists in the UK. So you know it, don't you?
Yeah.
So it's in our high street, and I can't imagine it being a house, can you?
No.
And I remember
it's changed a lot.
Yeah, I remember walking around it when I would have been about your age. Now, he was actually his parents' 8th son.
8th?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kids, isn't
That's nearly as old as I am.
No, not his age.
I know.
Oh, he was the 8th son. And he also had some sisters, but I don't know how many, actually. Now, his father was a midshipman in the Royal Navy, and his grandfather, on his mother's side, was the Lieutenant Bailiff of Guernsey. Now, he was a chap called, if I find the tab, he was a chap called Daniel Delisle Brock, and he's actually another important person in sort of Guernsey history. From what I've read so far, he seems like he really supported the island and helped the island out, so he would argue the rights of the islanders, modernising the island and bringing it up to date when he was the bailiff of the island. And also, his brother-in-law was Admiral James de Saumarez. And he's going to be another person who will feature. So you know the Saumarez, don't you?
Yeah. Because there's an exhibition at the museum about him, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's a really important figure in the island, and he would have known Lord Nelson. Okay, back to Brock. Now, he was seen as a good student, and aged at just 10, he was sent to Southampton to study. And he also spent a year in Rotterdam, where he learnt French, which was probably important because later in his life it would have been the Napoleonic Wars, where we were fighting Napoleon, who he wasn't French, he's Corsican.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he was, he became Emperor of France, didn't he? Mm-hmm. He was also physically fit, and he was a very strong swimmer and also a good boxer. And he measured 188 centimetres, or 6'2", as an adult, which is particularly tall for his time.
Yeah.
So it's still quite tall today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Taller than me. He was also said to be a handsome man, but on his death, his waist size was 120 centimetres. So that's pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's several of you. Now, when he was only 15, he joined the 8th King's Regiment of Foot, where he had an older brother who was already an officer. And he quickly rose through the ranks, purchasing the position of lieutenant in 1790 and becoming captain a year later, and then he transferred to the 49th Regiment. Now, back then, if you were somebody who was maybe quite well-to-do and kind of a gentleman or something, you might not have to actually progress up through the ranks in the normal manner. You could buy your position. It wasn't just on merit.
Yeah.
But supposedly, people say that his quick rise through the ranks was... Some people say it's maybe partly luck, but other people say it's also down to skill and ability. And it's after he joined the 49th Regiment where we get our first cool story. And he was challenged to a duel. Okay, so now being the target of the duel, he got to choose the terms and insisted that they use pistols. Now, everyone was shocked as Brock was a large target and his opponent was a very good shot. He also decided the shot should be taken at close range. Yeah, okay. Now, his opponent declined this and he was forced to leave the regiment. And because of this, Brock won a loss of support amongst his fellow officers. Now, the man who, I don't have his name actually, but the man who proposed the duel against him, apparently he was a bit of a bully, not a very nice man. Yeah. So he kind of stood up to him, which was really good there.
Yeah.
And he also came close to death again when he became ill serving in the Caribbean. So this was shortly after.
Yeah.
So he had a few kind of scrapes in his earlier life there. Now, you've got to remember, this is the time when the British Empire was really powerful. So think of Hornblower and Sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you picture those kind of series, which are both brilliant. So this is kind of the world in which he's living, in which he was an officer in the kind of British Army. But at that time, Europe would be plunged in the Napoleonic Wars. And in 1799, Brock had his first active combat, and he was now a lieutenant colonel. That's during the Battle of Alkmaar, which is in the modern-day Netherlands. And during this battle, he was hit in the neck with a musket ball.
That must have hurt.
So there'll be a little lead ball probably. Yeah. And that's why he's probably saved by his necktie, his neckcloth that he had, because it would have kind of kept being closed.
So did it come straight in the front of his...
I couldn't find out exact details. I'm guessing it was a bit of a grazing shot, which hit him and didn't go through any of the important kind of arteries or anything there, but...
Yeah,
pretty close.
Quite lucky there.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's hope he hasn't used up all of his luck already.
Now, here is just a man in uniform, so you can see how they look. That's not Brock there, but it's just from the era, okay?
Okay, yeah.
So there you can see the necktie around the neck. Yeah?
Big gun, actually.
Yeah. Now, Brock himself said of the event, "I got knocked down, and shortly after the enemy began to retreat, but never quitted the field, and returned to my duty in less than half an hour." So it's like stitched up or tied together, whatever they did, and he was going. So that's pretty impressive stuff, isn't it? Okay, now in 1802, he was posted to Canada, and this is where his most famous chapter starts to begin. But things didn't start well for him, and he had to deal with deserters and attempted mutiny. Yeah, so these acts, they weren't really aimed directly against him, but as he was kind of one of the senior sort of ranking commanders or officers there, he had to step in and try and sort them out.
Yeah.
Some of the deserters got ordered to be shot. So that's what happened back then if you were... mutineers.
Yeah.
Got orders to be shot, and apparently he felt a little bit bad about that.
Well, at least he wasn't too... At least he has a heart.
Yeah, yes. He attained the rank of colonel in 1805, and for a time he was in charge of the entire British Army in Canada.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, so he's doing well. He's become important. But then, as I mentioned earlier, relations between the British Empire and the United States were steadily deteriorating. Now, you've got to think, America at this time, it wasn't the international superpower like it is today. It's still a relatively new nation, okay? And they were starting to flex their muscles a little bit, and they were basically being bullied by the British. Because the Royal Navy, the most powerful navy in the world, we were able to control trade, into America and could blockade their ports and basically kind of push them around a bit, and tensions were really starting to build.
Yeah.
So if you look at this map down here, you can see this is America, so it doesn't go all the way across to the east yet. No, it doesn't go all the way across to the west yet. So you'd have some territories that weren't claimed yet. So you'd have the states here. So this is Canada at the top.
Yeah.
And that circled bit there's Detroit, which we will need next episode. But if you look all down the coast of America, so that was the British blockade, and Europe would be across the Atlantic to the east. So the British could block anything coming in. Now, the United States decided that the best option would be to push the British out of Canada so we could stop kind of pestering them and bullying them. Then Thomas Jefferson, he said that conquering Canada would be a mere matter of marching. So you know what that means?
Just march into it.
You just march in. There'd be no fighting involved, it'd be easy. Canada wasn't particularly well protected or fortified, but thankfully Brock was very quick to react in strengthening the fortifications around Quebec and also building a naval fleet to patrol the Great Lakes. So if you look here, particularly this, you see the lakes here? They're massive, massive expanses of water. It's the largest lakes in the world, right on the border between America and Canada. So you'd have to have fleets in there.
That's actually good, because British obviously had the best navy in the world at the time.
I don't think you could send boats from the sea to there. They have to be built there.
It does seem pretty cut off. You'd have to build, you wouldn't have all the materials that you would normally have. But
there's plenty of forest and things there, but you probably wouldn't have as good a crew as you might find in the Royal Navy proper. But then remember back then that it was much, much easier to travel by sea than over land, and much quicker.
Yeah.
So actually controlling the seas or the water or the lakes was really important for moving troops and everything. And now by this time, he had risen to the rank of Major General and is in charge of all the forces in Upper Canada. But he was also seeking a return home to Europe. So do you think he's trying to avoid conflict with America? Do you think he didn't want to fight?
Yeah.
No, because remember in Europe, we were fighting Napoleon. So he was probably wanted to get stuck in the real action in the war in Europe. And he was actually offered the opportunity to go to Europe, but he decided to turn it down, realising he had the duty and responsibility to defend Canada. Canada! Now, everyone expected Canada to be a soft target and to fall easily. But Brock quickly set about improving the training of the troops and the militia, and seeking alliances with First Nation leaders such as Shawnee Chief Tecumseh.
Yeah.
I think, which I've pronounced wrong. I'm awful at pronouncing things. Okay, so do you know what the militia is and how that differs to the army?
They're not actual soldiers. They're just people who they live normal lives, but then when they need to get called in, they will, and they don't have all the proper weapons.
Exactly, yeah. They are basically civilians who've been armed.
Yeah.
So, and they might have had some basic training in defence. So, on the 18th of June, 1812, the United States declared war on Britain. The British only had the militia, one infantry regiment and some retired veterans, and an artillery company, but they did control the Great Lakes, thanks to Brock's planning and building up that fleet. Now, would this be enough to fend off the American advance?
I guess we'll find out in the next.
Yeah, that's for next time, yeah. Are you feeling confident for Brock? A man from a small island in the second largest country in the world?
No.
No.
Not really at the moment. But yeah, that's a good placeholder.
So what do you think of him so far?
He seems intelligent. Tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like him so far, but I'm not sure if he gets himself into a bit of trouble, but he certainly did at the start of his career.
Well, it's funny because apparently he wasn't that well schooled. He was a good, bright student, but he didn't have that much education. But they're saying that he he started to build up a library of books, and he'd have all sorts of different things there. So he'd have things on military tactics, and he'd also have, I think, different books on philosophy and stuff. So he'd have a library, and he really valued education and continual learning.
Yeah, so no fluffy unicorn books.
No.
Anything like that.
No.
Everything focused on education, and he loves learning by the looks of it as well.
Yeah, just like you.
Yeah, the curious child.
Yes. So listen in next time for part 2.
Yeah, and maybe we might do a little play of the battle as well.
Yes, because I have read a little bit ahead, and there is a really interesting tactic that he uses, and I think you're going to like it.
Okay.
So check out next time when we continue the story of Sir Isaac Brock on The Curiosity of
A Child. Canada.
Canada.